Right now, I'd like to introduce our next segment, a conversation between our special guests, Jimmie Briggs and Jesse Lipscombe. They are exploring Black fatherhood across borders. This is something I know that many of you have been interested in. Jimmie Briggs is a documentary storyteller, a writer, and an activist. He's with the Skoll Foundation, leads the organization's racial justice team. He's also a member of the New York City Mayor's Gender Equity Commission and an adjunct professor in social change journalism at the International Center of Photography in New York. He was also co-founder and executive director emeritus of the Man Up campaign, an organization with a global mission to activate youth to stop violence against women and girls. Jesse Lipscombe is an actor, former athlete, activist, and entrepreneur. Hailing from Alberta, Jesse began his acting career at the age of 14 in the film Children of Dust alongside the legendary Sidney Poitier. In addition to acting, he's also a producer of award-winning films and television series, including It's Not My Fault and Tiny Plastic Men. In 2016, Jesse launched the Make It Awkward campaign to combat racism, misogyny, homophobia, and hatred. He now works with organizations and business leaders to help them understand and address racism. Jimmie and Jesse, hello to you both. We are so looking forward to your conversation.
Hi, Mary. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you, Mary, for having us. I'm Jesse Lipscombe, father of 3 sons.
I'm Jimmie Briggs, father of 2 daughters. I'm so excited to be here with you today. Jesse and I are going to be talking about being fathers, parenting children of color, in this moment especially, promise and peril. Jesse, I'm curious, from your perspective, having 3 sons, the conversation that you're having around safety, around protection, and with your young men.
It's interesting times, as we all know, and I imagine our stories are going to be a little different with me raising 3 young men and you raising 2 young women. But the conversations, they started, just for some background, I have a 13-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And so some of these conversations started a while ago, and they seem to continually happen over and over. And one thing that's stuck with me lately is I've unfortunately found myself having dreams, like really bad dreams about all of these, well, we'll call it the war on blackness. I'm waking up in the middle of the night and thinking about my own children, but then also realizing I have to be my best self if I'm trying to raise them. So I can't bring my own stress and drama of what's happening into the parenting. And it's tough back and forth. What about you, Jimmie? What have you found that's been important, or I guess alarming maybe?
No, I take what you're saying to heart, Jesse, sincerely. I mean, I haven't been having dreams, but as a writer, I've had the impulse to write everything down. I feel like every day something's happening that spurs me to want to do an essay or some sort of editorial story. It's challenging, because I do have a daughter. My older daughter is actually almost 20 years old. She's a freshman in college. My younger daughter is 11 months old, and so it's interesting for me just to see the generational gap between them, and wondering how do I process this world that seems to be at war with me as a Black man, but as you said, a war against Blackness itself. How do I process this threatening world in a way that is not discouraging, thwarting their hopes and dreams?
Yeah, you're right. Because at the same time, I'm trying to keep the beauty and wonder and strength of Blackness center stage, while also not trying to pretend like there aren't real threats and real inequalities that exist based just on their skin color alone. Like my job, I'm an actor and an activist, so they see their father do this work day in and day out, which I hope is a good thing. But I also hope it doesn't sway the needle to this world of living in fear, because that's not a thing that I'll do. I'll live in the reality of it and I feel the weight of it. But at the same time, living in the moments and just showing what a joyful life can still be is very, very important for me to keep in their minds.
Absolutely. I mean, dealing with generational gap, but with both my kids, Jesse, like you with your sons, I'm always uplifting the joy, always uplifting the cohesiveness, the strength of our family. That even though the world at times be threatening, making sure that I almost curate the world for them, to elevate the joy, elevate the wonder, both in the natural world, both in the arts. Like you, I'm not an artist in the same way, but I'm a writer, storyteller, and really leaning into, I would say, my gifts. and creativity to kind of wrap them in the possibilities. The world will bring what it's going to bring, but as much as possible, I want them to be equipped for that world and to have the strength to be resilient and to whatever challenges they come in that direction.
As I'm listening to you speak right now, and those who don't know me may not know this, but I mean, I lead with love, I lead with empathy and all of the work that I'm doing. But right now I'm sitting here watching this conversation that you and I are having and just thinking how actually unfair it is, right? The fact that we have to have this conversation where we're talking about two Black fathers trying their absolute hardest to raise their children so that they can be safe, so they can just exist in life and live their absolute best life. And we need to have conversations about it so that we can help teach other fathers and have conversations with others' fathers. It really says a lot about the environment, the state that we're in right now, I'm happy this is normalized, Jimmie, because I love chatting with you, right? Yeah. But I hate that it has to be normalized. That thing is really it weighs heavy on my soul for sure.
Well, it's interesting, Jesse, as you're talking, I got to be honest with you, I'm looking behind you, or created behind you. I'm seeing Malcolm X, I'm seeing Martin Luther King Jr., I'm seeing James Baldwin, all of whom were key figures of inspiration and strength throughout my life. And I think you're right. It's kind of surreal that these conversations, such as this one, have to be normalized. They have to become, part of the journey our children take. Going from youth and adolescence until adulthood. At the same time, I think there's so many heroes and sheroes in our, collective and shared histories, nationally, globally, locally, who really, I think for me, I know for you too, really represent beacons of light. That the journey may be hard, the path may be, have obstacle challenge, some of which we can't foresee, some of which we can. But still that it's possible to navigate this journey in such a way that one's excellence, one's dreams and hopes do not be dashed, that there is a way forward to live life fully and to live life, most importantly, with dignity, even when the threats to one's dignity or humanity maybe exist somewhere in the world.
Yeah, it's about relating with people. It's about the commonality. So as we talk about the struggles, ideally there's somebody watching and saying, I want the same for my children. I want my children to be in the best place they possibly can. I actually never really thought about what a world might look like if that was threatened on a daily basis. And I think the other side of this, the good part about this, is having these conversations and really just humanizing humans. And it's a weird thing to say, but humanizing Black people. As it turns out, we are humans that love and care and share and want the best for ourselves and the best for our children. And the more we can have those conversations, those intercultural communications, I think the closer we get to making some of the real changes. Because you take one person one at a time and have a conversation with them, we're on the same page for the most part, right? But then when we look at this whole thing collectively is where the problem is. And that's that question. How do we move that needle in the right direction so that you and I can just be parents, right? Just parents. Not Black parents raising Black children. No, just parents raising their kids. That would just be a wonderful thing.
Jesse, I'm so with you, man. I think we both, all of us want that. I think it's about common ground, as you're saying about empathy. It's common ground, finding those places where we do share interests, share hopes, aspirations. We share joy and happiness, the things that bring us light, that bring us smiles. As a parent, but also as an individual in this world, I've always tried to strive for, beyond skin, beyond gender, beyond sexual identity, beyond faith, whatever intersections of identity that one could take as separateness or otherness, really leaning into what connects us as a way of exploring what makes us different. I mean, you know as well as I, this is a small fraction of who we are biologically, but yet it shapes so much of how we are seen in the world and how we're forced to show up in the world. And I think, it is possible, Jesse, to your point, first live our lives in a way that, this is not, it's not a barrier. It's not, it's not a blessing or barrier. It's just who we are. It's the skin, it's what we wear in the world. but it doesn't define how we move and how we impact the world.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's not a blessing or a barrier as a fact, but it fully is a barrier right now. And right, like, so, like I hear the words are true. They're true words. It's not, but yet it is. It's looked on as one very often. One of the things you were saying, we're talking about our skin color. This is something I did with my kids. We went to Home Depot. I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, so I don't know if you guys have Home Depot there. But anyways, at Home Depot, we went to the Benjamin Moore paint section and got the color swabs. So we went, and so I know I'm a black man, but I like to talk about how we're not a monolith. Like how what I say is not for all black people, and what Jimmie says is not for all black people. As it turns out, even my kids were all different shades. So I went to the Benjamin Moore color section, and in the summer, I'm ancient walnut, and in the winter, I am toasted bagel. And all of us have different paint swabs. But the beautiful part about that was there's still all this beauty in the individuality of all of us, that we can all take our own paths to a very similar future. And just because the world, quote unquote, may see us as one thing, don't get caught up in that one thing. You are so many things. Yeah. For me, that was a really beautiful and fun thing that we did together, that it took that idea of like blackness and turned it into something like I'm Jesse and this is me. And yes, I live in this world, but ultimately I get to pick. Even if there are barriers, like you mentioned, I get to choose how much those are going to weigh me down and how much I'm going to focus on them. I'm also going to choose on the beauty of today and living in this moment right now, because that's something we can take care of and we have power and control of.
That's right. It's so, I love the Home Depot story, Jesse. We have Home Depot here in New York, so I can relate to what you're saying.
Awesome, that's good.
Yeah, it's amazing because you know, even amongst, I don't know you and your sons, even amongst my daughters and I, all of us are different shades. My daughter, you know, is cafe au lait. You know, I'm so I think you said burnt almond. The baby is a darker complexion. We're all connected. You know, we're all family, kin, and yeah, I think, you know, just when my daughters and I, you know, kind of put our hands next to each other and see the differences, you know, even between us, you know, we're appreciating the differences in tone, but also honoring and celebrating each other, you know, because we're all connected. And I think, to your point, I think even beyond one's individual family, you know, you know, as fathers and adults know this, it's easily possible to create meaningful connections, to create, you know, as I would say, durable bonds with across this skin color. And I, from my experience in my life, I've done that more times than I can count. I think, you know, for our kids, modeling that we can have deep, connecting, with loving relationships, empathetic relationships, irrespective of one's skin color.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've said before, change moves at the speed of empathy. And it's this idea that, like, just because someone doesn't speak like you, look like you, walk like you, eat the same foods you eat, once you can see yourself in them, that's when you can feel for them, feel with them, yes, protect them. And right now I'm preaching to the choir, and I know this because as a marginalized individual, and don't get me wrong, I have a ton of privileges and I understand that. I try to even use those to support those who don't. But knowing that, it's my job to reach out, to learn, to discover the similarities so that we can get closer to this understanding that we're not different. And it depends on whatever your beliefs might be a universal consciousness, could be God, could be this, but the idea that we're just the same thing. And if we know that, I don't want to hurt myself, which means that's you, Jimmie, that's you who's watching, that's my kids, that's your kids. And imagine loving them that way. Well, nothing goes wrong. Nothing goes wrong in that world. And there's nothing to be scared of. And that's the thing too, right? Fear is so at the heart of this. I don't know, so I'm scared. I make decisions based out of fear instead of looking further to investigate, learn, empathize, grow together. And I think if we could just get rid of that little horror story, that scary book, and understand that, you know, Jimmie, I just met it not too long ago, right? I knew you were wonderful within 2 seconds. it just makes sense.
Yeah. I've been the same, Jesse. We've spoken before by phone, but this is the first time we have a conversation that's just this way. Something you said, though, I want to just go back to, if you have time, it struck me about your dreams. I'm just curious if you're going to share, like, those fears, that stress that, that I totally understand you don't want to show your sons. Where do you put it? What is it? I mean, where does it go? I mean, as you and I both know, as adult men, those tensions have to go somewhere. I'm just curious, in your case, how do you release it, or where do you put it?
Yeah, you're right. I have to say the dreams are new. This isn't something. So I've been an activist and working and speaking for years, and whether it's me having a thick skin, quote unquote, or not, but I have been able to do a lot of it. And then every once in a while, there's an emotional dump. And for me, that's writing as well. That's music. That's art. But lately, the dreams, which have been very graphic, and they have just been visions of pure police brutality and shootings of unarmed Black men. And it's just, I'm just about to do something and I can't do anything. So it's just this idea that as much as I'm doing, I can't do it by myself. And then the idea of waking up with this, I don't want to put that on my children. But my outlets are things like this, Jimmie. And I'm a Black man, and there was a big stigma. Ancient walnut, toasted bagel, Black by definition. But there's a stigma that, men aren't supposed to feel, aren't supposed to cry. I throw that in the trash. Jimmie, I would cry. I cry every Sunday, Monday, American Idol. That is the show where all of the tears come, because I see people's hopes and dreams, and I stick with my sons, and I'm snotting on them and crying. I love crying so much. So I have no problem getting my emotions out, and I get to share them with audiences, and whether it's Facebook Lives or in-person things before COVID. So I do feel okay that I do have an ability to get it out. It comes in, and I know it's not mine. I feel it. I cry about it. I get angry-ish, not super mad. I just usually want to do more. So for me, if an emotion shows up, it's an emotion. It's real. It's valid. It's important, and I express it as much as I can. And I want my sons to do the same. Their dad's a crybaby. That's fine. That means be strong, because it's harder. It is harder to cry publicly. We try to say we're tough men. Well, then have a tear in front of your tough dudes. That's hard work.
Absolutely, Jesse. I appreciate you, man. I really do. But it's so funny. Growing up, I was a crybaby growing up. I'll be honest with you, Jesse. I was a crybaby growing up, but the men of my life, the adult men of my life as a child, maybe it was the case in your situation too. They really kind of, it's almost kind of ground out of you, especially as a Black boy. You're told, don't cry, man up, be strong, don't be soft, be hard. And I think, more than I realized, Jesse, I took that to heart. I mean, I cried a lot. I was very emotional growing up. As an adult, maybe because of the job I had as a journalist, when I was working as a journalist, I kind of drowned out that emotionality out of myself. I mean, I would put emotion into my writing, and in relationships, I was emotional, of course, but to the world, it was almost like had to be stoic, had to be like a sphinx, not showing anger or rage, not showing tears, not showing laughter, just showing a blankness. Now I'm realizing that with my first daughter, I think I was still that way. With my younger daughter, realizing I have to be my full self. I have to show my full humanity so that she sees what a fully realized man looks like, a fully realized human being looks like. We're emotional creatures. We need that emotion. I think more than anything, it's something you said before, striking as well about fear. I find myself loving my partner, loving my children fiercely. Not necessarily fearlessly. I mean, I'm carrying fear myself for them, but my love with and towards them, I'm fierce in my love, man. I mean, unabashed about loving them publicly, kissing, hugging them, falling over them, and at the same time, loving them in a way that saying that you have to be. I want to be strong, independent women, strong, independent women of color, which in some ways, then the world's going to be even more challenging for you because of your gender. But no matter what, you can still be strong. You can still be resilient and be emotional and be complex and not be broken.
I love what you're saying, and I think this idea, the idea of men and the parameters that we've been given to be strong, to be hard. But when you really look at it, being strong, it takes a very strong man to be able to tell his friend, his homie, his dad, his brother that I'm sad, I'm hurt, I'm scared. And there's this misnomer that like being hard and being strong means you don't say those things. Being open and being vulnerable has these negative connotations. And me as a father of 3 men, I like to switch that word vulnerable to available. It's the same thing, but available means if I'm sad, I'm available for you to help. I'm available for opportunities that come as a result of it. I'm there, I'm in the moment, and I'm not, even when you were mentioning yourself that, you know, growing up and you weren't able to, it was taken out of you. I hear that and it hurts my heart. It's like you weren't allowed to be a full person. And I see that so many times. And I think a lot of that is, it just does such a disservice. And this idea of hard, strong, angry Black men, Black women, all of this is just bringing us right to the problems that we're trying to fight. This conversation, I know, could go on and on. Jimmie, I have to say, though, but thank you so much for having this convo with me. We're going to have more of these, I hope, in the future. And it's been a wonderful start of my day. I hope you guys enjoyed it.